What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 33 of my journey as a startup founder. I'm building an AI company like many people, but I'm building an AI search company. And if you're calling me crazy, that's pretty much the reason why I'm doing it. But jokes aside, basically, I want to build a much better Google or a much better Perplexity as a small company that is user-centric, where decisions are made on behalf for that benefit users and not necessarily growth or investors' return of investment. It's easier said than done. I don't have any funding, and frankly, I have not approached any form of any investors, and I don't want funding at the moment, at least. I'm building it with my own money, my own credit cards. The only hope I have is Google gives me some credits for their server platform, Google Cloud, that lets me build. Right now, I'm paying for all the server costs. So I've applied for their startup program, but haven't heard anything from them yet. This despite being a Zoogler. I used to work for Google. I was part of Google Search in a leadership role, and I quit a couple of years back to start this. So clearly, they don't care about ex-Google people leaving and starting their own companies, and that's exactly what I did. I quit to start my own little company. For the first year, I was just trying to figure out what and how exactly. And for the last year and a half, I've been in full-on coding mode, 7 days a week, all yeah, building this thing. And I've always said this in my previous videos. This is episode 33. I think in most videos I've said this is the best decision I've made in my life. Even though I've lost so much money, all the comp and equity, I still think it's the best decision. It allows me the freedom and it allows me to build something that is a true representation of what I want to build, what I want to give back to the world. Information, research, knowledge tool that just works for the users. And it's very transparent. The four pillars I've talked about in the past: transparency, it's transparent, kind of not only just how it works, but how the data is used. Um, it's ethical in terms of decision making, which goes back to user-centric company. It's ethical. Decisions are made in the best interest of the users versus short-term growth and growth at all costs, which is what all these Y Combinator and all these amazing startups do because their ambitions become billion-dollar companies and trillion-dollar companies. They think that's the measure of success. 10x investment, 100x investment return for investors, and all founders becoming billionaires. I know this. I've always known this. Becoming a billionaire is just kind of like standing on top at the edge of a cliff. You become a billionaire, but now what? It just doesn't make sense to me. But anywho, today I'm talking about something very near and dear to my heart. I've talked about various things about how I'm building it, but today is something that I think is one of the most important pieces. So let me walk you through before you kind of see before kind of the screen that I'm showing makes sense. So when you're building an AI company of any sort, mine is an AI search company. So obviously I use search, different facilities to search the web, to call different APIs because there are a lot of walled gardens. And then I've put it together and compose it, kind of produce a response. And obviously there are a lot of things that happen in that sort of deciding what to call, how to process, and how to compose. There's an entire pipeline, a series of steps that happen. But today's not the time to talk about that series. Today's time to talk about the final piece in that sort of pipeline, which is putting it all together. There actually is a piece even after this component in my pipeline that evaluates how good the response is. And if not, it tries other things, which is crazy. That's why it's a pipeline. But this is, you know, for all intents and purposes, you can think of this as sort of the end of the line, which is you put it all together. Now, this is similar to how if you're interacting with, say, any AI app, like a chat app like ChatGPT, if you've ever tried asking or telling ChatGPT, hey, respond in ASCII or respond in Markdown or produce a table or produce a report. These are all things you're telling the AI that, hey, I want this in a particular format. And what I'm trying to do and what I'm showing here is no different, except what I'm doing, the way I'm approaching it is I don't expect my users or my product's users to necessarily tell the search platform how they want the response to be like. And I want the AI to infer, to know what would be the best way to put it together. Is it a recipe? And so the best way to show is a recipe format. Is it just a list of things? Maybe because the user wants a list, like, hey, help me with a travel checklist before I start packing my bags, all the things I may need, or all the places I may want to visit when I'm going to Thailand. Um, or it could be a research report and it needs all these sections, or it is a design document, or it's just plain prose, or it's a poem or haiku, and you want it in that format. All of these are just examples of how you'd want the AI to respond. But I want such that I don't want the user to kind of tell the AI every time. I want the AI to learn. And so that's what today's talk is about. How do you do that? And it starts by first understanding what the query is and understanding the user and understanding what the query is about and what we pulled from the internet and different sources. If you can put it all together, you get a nice view of what we're kind of looking at. You know the user. If you know the user, that's already sort of part of the job is done. You can read the prompt and try to dissect it. That helps. You can also look at the history. That helps. But then looking at the contents of what we pulled and what the content material is also helps. And how do you put it all together such that the response you get is like, wow, oh, this is kind of what I'm expecting. Sometimes you want a compact response, and this should learn that. And sometimes you want a more detailed response. Sometimes you want an overview and then a detailed response. There's lots of ways you can go. And I don't think I've solved this. Now, one thing before I jump into sort of what I'm talking about here on the screen, before I go there, there's one more thing I want to talk about, which is how AI apps do this, like Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini. They use a technique called human reinforced learning. So there are responses that are shown to users, and users pick one or the other, and there's a reward that you get, a higher reward if it's a better response, a lower reward if it's a less desirable response, and they feed it back to the model as training. And so the idea is that as humans, we kind of tell indirectly the model that we prefer this kind of response for this kind of question, for this kind of prompt. This is a better response, and we feed that. And so the model companies, the approach they have is very simple, actually, the more elegant solution. They just keep making the model more and more intelligent, more and more sophisticated, and more smarter. So they don't have to do what I'm doing necessarily. They may still do some of the things I'm doing at the tooling level, but that's not their focus. Now, there are a couple of problems with that approach as far as kind of me and sort of what I'm trying to build. One, I don't have the opportunity to take some of these models and fine tune it and reinforce it. I don't have access. These model companies don't give you. I'm using like the newer Gemini models. They don't allow it. That's obviously a problem. But second thing, even if they allow it, I'm a one person company, so I have limited resources. And that's a problem. And third thing, as in it's costly, etc., to do it. The third thing is, and this is the most important in my opinion, is is the future going to be dominated by just a handful of very, very extremely large models? I call them God models because they're basically God-like things. They know everything. They can predict everything. They can analyze anything. They can find a solution to everything, or at least most things that we want. So I call them God models. Is the future dominated by God models, or will there be room for smaller models as well? And that's one thing. And the second thing also is that will there be a God model? Like, will ChatGPT develop finally a model, or Grok, one model that rules it all, and so all the other models you can just throw it away? I don't think so. There are a few problems with that theory. One is if you have a very large model, chances are it's very expensive to run because it's a large model. It takes a lot of storage to just host it, and a lot of GPUs, all the compute, all the power. It needs a lot of power. So that's a problem. Second, it's most likely controlled by a private entity. That's a problem. Like you can influence the world's decision making. Everyone, that is very scary. Ooh, very, very scary. This is the reason I worry about this whole AI trajectory that we are on, which I'm in the same camp of people who have predicted this, or who have seen this happening for quite some time, because I used to work for Google and some very large tech companies. I've been sort of in this space, search related technology, dealing with multiple sort of machine learning models at the time. Um, and this conversation that comes up with engineers when you're having lunch or at the bar. But anyway, that is scary. And then also is the question, how do you kind of manipulate it? Is it just like you reach a stage and that's it? Or you have to keep improving it? If you look at the universe, everything is always evolving. We don't have something like a steady state that's it. The universe kind of has some part, some component, some structure, some galaxy, some planet that just like, oh, I reached my steady state, my final state. That's it. No more evolution, no more evolving, no more changing. No, it may appear that way because we're looking from a very small human time frame. But in the grand scheme of things, everything's always changing, moving around, evolving. Things are happening all the time. And I expect to see that's a universal law. The law is true for everything in the universe. And that will apply for very large models. And that means you have to keep this very large model maintained and updating. And that will cost even more money. And in the hands of very small group of people, very scary, very scary. And also biases. If you just look at the war at Iran that's going on right now, there's so many different biases. The Western world has a different set of values and thought processes, and some Middle Eastern countries have different values. What will this model honor? Like, will it all just be Western values? And so anything that's not liberal democracy, like the decision making will be like, get rid of them. These are kind of crazy things. It's scary. So now, so that's, I don't know if that's the world. I don't see that kind of world happening. Of course, there'll be very large models that dominate everyone, no doubt about it. But I think two things I think. One is the smaller models will play a key role. And secondly, we may not even, that the gigantic God model may not even be a single model. I don't think so. The more I think about it, it will be what I call a composition of models, an orchestration, an orchestra. It will be an orchestra. And then collectively, it's like a bunch of folks on a bunch of different um, instruments, and you get the final effect and you can enjoy. You can close your eyes and it appears as if it's just one coming from one entity. Everything's harmonious and you're like, wow, enjoying. And by the way, I bought these Bowers and Wilkins PX8 S2. I had to, I don't know, sell a kidney to buy these, let's just say that. But I live in a place, if you're following me, it's so loud and so messed up that I had to get me something that can take me away from all this chaos. And I'm kind of in this prison cell room. I can't go out. And so this kind of helps me escape. But I think it's an orchestra model that I think will be more successful, and will, even if there are guard single models, this will compete and give a run for the money for the large guard models. And this orchestra will behave as a guard model to the user, because you can close your eyes and you think it's coming like orchestra music. It's just one entity beaming at you, this beautiful music. But in reality, there's so many different folks playing so many different instruments. There is a mass, the conductor conducting, etc. And I feel that's a model that when I close my eyes, I don't know about latest research. I don't read up on this. This is just me contemplating things. That's what I see. And the search startup that I'm building, I have architected in that philosophy. It's an orchestra. And that allows me to be practical. I can use a bunch of smaller models, different models. I don't have to rely on one model, because if that company stops me, blocks me, or goes out of business, my company is screwed. I'm not reliant on that. And then plus the nicest thing is then I can have some little bit kind of my own, uh, not exactly mode, but like my own differentiation. I That's how, like, it'll be very hard for someone to copy, even though they'll build everything, all the components that I have. I mean, there is some differentiation. It'll be different. So what that means is more option for users. That's what I mean, not like domination or anything. And that's kind of the ultimate goal is of mine. To build this so that it becomes it's another alternative, gives people an option, and hopefully it's a really good option. And so think of an orchestra. That's how I built this architecture. Again, a lot of companies do this. I'm not at all saying this is sort of unique or a genius or anything. But when I close my eyes, that's what I see. And that's how I see the God model. So it's a composition, so many different models working in harmony. And in this case, this is one of the sort of model step in my orchestra. That's what is composition. That's what I want to talk about. Sorry for the long prelude. So there are a bunch of other instruments, but today I want to talk about this. And this is sort of the piece that puts it all together. So I want to talk about sort of the before after. So when I first, by the way, I'm on version 6. So that's another thing. People like, what are you doing for like almost 2 years, year and a half? It's when I last 1.5 years, I've been seriously building this. First 6 months, I was like clueless, like, huh? Like I quit to build this, but how do I get started? What should I build? And thankfully, all the AI apps have gotten better. So that has given me a little bit of wave to ride. But um, this is the 6th version. I built V1 through it, 2nd version through it, 3rd version of the architecture and prototype through it, 4th, 5th. 5th wasn't really a build. It was just like a design step, only I threw it. And then I built 6, this version 6. But even in V6, the earlier time, I've been on V6 now for 2, 3 months now. But when I first started, that's what this before was. So what I would do is I would take the query and you have to kind of cap the instructions because you have limited context. I had some instruction and it was generic, like it said in the screen. It was generic format. And then the I have a composer LLM stage in my orchestra. And it was sort of figured out, it had to figure out. It was generic prompt. It had to figure out um, what it has to do and format and content, et cetera, et cetera. And it was basically was sort of one tool for all kind of problems. And that was the aha moment I had was it has to be much better because this is what will put it all together. This is what users will see. And sometimes you won't believe there are so many times I've seen where I have had the data that say I wanted, but it just never made it in the final response because the final response is limited by what the LLM outputs. And of course, there's a max limit to it. And also there's a max limit on how much I can consume or we can consume. So it has been the source, but never made it or never made it in the format that I wanted. And so the response was useless. And it turned out that all I had to do was the composer LLM. This stage needed to be smarter. So even though this sounds like a very basic thing, this was a huge moment for me. And I can't wait for you guys to try this. I don't think, by the way, anyone's watching. This is something I'm recording for my future self, is what I've said. But who knows if someone runs into it? It's I want to share this. Okay, so it was a genetic prompt, and it was just too much burden to kind of put it together. And yeah, it didn't do a good job. It was okay. But now, what's the new way I'm doing this? For each query now, I have custom instructions, and then I've for personas. So it's just a way to kind of it's the tone. You can control the tone. You want a developer tone, or researcher tone, or a funny tone. Butler is something I like. I always like English butler. Sir, yes, sir. Yes, today's day. It's like something very formal. And then I have something called a profile. Profile is more about understanding what the prompt is and the content is, and you profile it. You kind of get a heat map of what we are dealing with here. It's like you look at everything that you put it on the table, like what the user is asking, what we collected, what we know about the. It's just you put it and you just look at it and build a heat map. That's what that is. Then you know a little bit about the user, some memories, expertise, blah blah blah. Again, some of this is like it's not exactly I've put it all together yet. This is from a design doc, by the way. Some of it I may not build, like expertise, memories, preferences. I don't know if I'll build all three. at least on day one. But it's just a way of saying that there's so many things you can collect about the user, so many things you can collect about the profile, so many things you can collect about persona or ask the person. In my case, it's like Grok, I think, also has this option where when you ask a question, you can just from a drop down change the tone or persona, and there'll be a default persona, so you don't have to, you don't want to. Then there's a format. What's the format again that's derived from the query now and made it formal? There is a step before this that kind of helps with it. But for this sort of composer that we're looking at, you can just kind of assume for now that there's a way that I'm able to derive the format. And then content is just everything we collected. It's like going to the shopping mall and buying a bunch of things based on what you needed. Like you're going to travel somewhere. Okay, I'll need this. I collected everything, right? What did you collect? That's your inventory, everything. And for search, it's like web pages and things just crawled or from API. I don't have my own search index. I just use API. And then anything in terms of safety, you want to kind of ground yourself and make sure, like, oh, like we pulled something from the web. Web can be a scary place, a crazy place. We can pull something, or maybe it's like 18 plus content or something, and we're like, whoa. We need to be careful here. So that's that. And then you put it together in what I have here is a focus prompt with definition of what the output is. And at least the intention is that the output of this process is you have a much more focused prompt. In other words, if I were to summarize everything I'm saying in one line, is the prompt for the LLM to compose is dynamically generated. That's basically it. Before I had like almost static, and based on everything we know. And this should be evolving, should be improving over time. Now, my ultimate goal, let me change the camera a little bit. My ultimate goal is that should be all be driven by another model, like an orchestrated model that does all of this. Today, it's a little bit static, the flow of the pipeline I have. But I'm trying to see as much as possible. I logs training data so that I can train a model. And I think about where I can avoid being static and kind of give the previous step in the pipeline opportunity to be intelligent and guide what's next. So I think of it like psycho-cybernetics mode or heat-seeking missile mode. Like it's constantly adjusting the path based on sort of the current circumstance. And that's how I would ideally want my architecture. The query is going constantly evaluating, taking a path, not on a static path. That's not what I want. That's how traditionally we build apps and search apps, for example. But I want it to be dynamic based on what we know at the moment. That's the, I don't think my V1 will be exactly that, but that's the vision I have. Yeah, and puts it all together. And once you have this prompt dynamically generated, you can throw it all the context, everything we've collected, and let it do its job. Do your thing. And it'll output something that hopefully is much nicer, really nice for you to consume as a user. And you get your search response and you're like, yay. So yeah, so that's yeah. Sorry about that. That is what today's video about. I had some other things I wanted to show. But I think it's more of the same thing. So I'll stop here. In summary, constructing the composition prompt dynamic mode with all these different things, building the architecture like a heat-seeking missile, almost like a psycho-cybernetic style, dynamic model driven, ideally in the future such that you collect data that you can train a model, and being wary of the user, being wary of safety, uh, and see how much you can personalize based on what you know. And like I said, you can, I in my architecture at least, I don't know again that step. There's one more step after this. I don't know if I'll have it in my V1, but there's one more step that I've designed that can look at the output and see if it's satisfactory or not. And if it's not satisfactory, You can try again with differently. Again, this is all, by the way, all industry research folks have done. Um, but it all makes sense too. Like, just let's review it, critique it. So you can do that as well. Start. So there's a lot of things you can do. A lot of opportunities. Of, people think that, oh, ChatGPT can do everything. I had a friend. It's kind of a short story here. Uh, his goal always was like, oh, let's build something that ChatGPT cannot. And then when I would ask him, well, what is it that you think ChatGPT cannot today or tomorrow? And he would just completely be stumped. Like, oh yeah, eventually we'll be able to do everything. So then, so what? You're not going to build anything? And that's a terrible thing to have just be reliant on one tool. So my 2 cents, like, I mean, I don't even have my product out, but um, I was able to quit my job because I was so serious about not having not relying on just one app or one AI provider or a very small set of tools. We need diversity in tools. We need diversity, especially anything that's to do with information. And look what I've been able to kind of inject. I almost think of like it's like spice. I've been able to spice the AI in my way. So my dish, even if we're making the same dish, ChatGPT and I, of course, ChatGPT is sophisticated and just a lot of machinery, and it'll be amazing. Mine will be like kind of homegrown and home cooked, like very basic. But who knows? At the end, you may like my dish more with my spices than ChatGPT, and ChatGPT may look more mechanical. Who knows? I don't know. I have suspicion that this kind of approach can surprise people. So to anyone out there who's like my friend thinking, oh, ChatGPT will be able to do everything, it's a very wrong approach in my opinion, my humble opinion. You should give back to the world that you believe in. Don't have too much expectation. Like, I have no expectation who will use this. I'll use it. And if one, two, five people use it, I think that's good. Yes, I have to worry about monetization, but I have my options. Maybe I'll become a content creator. I don't know. Maybe there are ways you can do things. You can build other products. Once you have something like this, you've learned so much. You picked up so much knowledge. I've picked up so much knowledge on just building things with AI that now I can build anything so much quicker. Some other tool. I don't know. I can build a fancy calculator or some other app. So you're investing in yourself. So I think you should go ahead and do it. Like, one of my side mission, not mission, but hope is that people see my journey, my story, get inspired, and they follow suit and not get stuck at these very large tech companies who pay very well. Like, Google paid me very well. I mean, sometimes wakes me up in the middle of the night. Holy shit, what did I do? But after I take a few breaths, I immediately realize I would have regretted, like, at the end of the day, I wanted to do this, I didn't, just for safety or more money. So, and you, who knows, this will make you even more richer if you are one of those engineers who are on the fence. So, yeah, I don't think we want a world where all the best talent works at all these amazing tech companies making a lot of money, and then so we just have a handful of products. I think we want diversity in products. We want small products, medium products, very large products, and we want users to make the choice. So that's it for today. I'll see you in the next one. This was episode 33. April next month is when I'm hoping to have a pre alpha or MVP. I don't even know what to call it. I don't have investors. I can call it whatever I want. I don't have co-founders again, so I can call whatever I want. So I don't know what I'll call it, but a pre alpha is what I'm thinking about. So hopefully next month I'll have it, and then I can show the UI. And all right. Until then,